What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video, we are going to be finally, after all this time, doing my review of Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 2. I know it's been out for 3 months now, or whatever it is. I still haven't gotten around to doing a review of it. I'm finally doing it now. And in light of Part 3, the finale, the big finale coming in about less than 2 weeks now. We just got the trailer for it yesterday, got the poster a few days ago. I'm excited. I cannot wait to see what is ultimately going to be the big finale of one of my favorite shows. And hopefully it will remain that way after the finale, if they do it right. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into my review. So you guys know the drill. I'm going to start off with the things that I liked, then go into the things I didn't like. So the things I really enjoyed about Season 6 Part 2, I really liked the scope of everything. They did a very good job at making this feel big, it feel important. You know, there was tons of dojos there. There was, there was just tons and tons of different people and, advertisers and things like that. There was so much going on. It felt very wide and large in its scope. It's also really did a good job at setting a darker tone for me. I really could feel like the dark tone just from the start of the season. Just the lack of confidence they had early on. In the tournament, they were really self-conscious about themselves. From Robbie being really distracted, and the whole dojo getting their asses handed to them. The tone was set strongly very early on. I gotta say, Quan is probably the best bad guy in Cobra Kai of the teenagers. Brandon H. does such a fantastic job with Quan. He is not only is he intimidating, but he's just so fun to watch. Every time Quan was on screen, I was having a good time. He brings that energy, he's hype, he's funny, he's a dick, and you love it. He is the best bad guy in Cobra Kai of the teenagers for me. He's fantastic. Loved him. He is one of the standout characters of the season. Really, he's great. He definitely brought his A game compared to how he was in Part 1 to how he was in Part 2. In Part 1, he was kind of quiet, more monotone. In 2, he brings it, man. He is hype. He is fun. He's exaggerant. He's great. He's just awesome. Another thing I really enjoyed were a lot of the fight scenes this season. Very good stuff, man. Very good fight scenes. I think the standout fight of the season, and in my opinion, it's the best one-on-one fight in the entire series, was Quan versus Robbie. This fight was so good, so badass. The choreography was peak in this. You can really tell they tried to make this look good. They practiced it. They worked hard into making it believable. And that's how it turned out. It was very believable. Had some great, fantastic music behind it, which is something I'm going to get into soon. It had some great moments like, Robbie just completely annihilating Quan, right? He just completely destroys him, which I kind of would have liked to see them maybe butt heads a little bit more. Like, it was pretty even, but Robbie kind of just destroyed him, and they kind of spent some time building up Quan as to be the big bad, and I kind of wish he was the big bad. Later on, we would find out it's not actually him, it's Axel. Still, though, very, very much so, enjoyed that fight. It was a fantastic fight. Robbie throwing him over his head and the whole kip-up scene. It's just so badass, And then we can't forget the finale brawl. By far the best brawl we've had. We've had so many different brawls over the years, and this one just really, it gave you everything you wanted to see. It had a shocker of an ending. Obviously, Quan dying. I love that ending. I think it's a great way to shock the fan base and finally, give us that jolt. For 6 seasons now, we've all been saying, who's going to die? Someone's got to die. Who's going to die? That's always the big shocker in a TV show or a movie is who's going to die, right? And there had to be Quan, which I think was a good choice. And I liked the way he died. It made sense, He is a sadistic, psychotic bastard. And for him to grab a knife and try to attack someone with it and ultimately it killing himself, I feel like it made sense. So great shocker of an ending that goes along, again, with a fantastic fight. I mean, you got Miguel versus Axel. You got Robbie versus Quan and Yoon. You got Sam versus Zara. Tori versus Zara. You got Johnny versus Sensei Wolf. Kreese versus Silver. Johnny versus Silver. You got Johnny and Daniel versus, I forget the guy's name, Mike Barnes' old henchman from Season 2. Or from Karate Kid 3, I don't know why I said Season 2. so many great surprises, like Terry Silver coming back. Great. Love to see it. Well, you figured he was going to come back, and I think they found a neat way to work him into it. I also, liked getting a little bit more of Kim Da-eun's story fleshed out. She, in season 5, she just felt like just a mean-spirited bitch who doesn't care about anything except, honoring her grandfather's legacy, right? And I feel in this, they did a very good job at fleshing her out, making her feel more human, having her have a relationship with Chosen, which we all kind of figured may happen. It was definitely predictable to some extent. So I really enjoyed that. I loved the atmosphere of Barcelona. There's so many great locations. I guess they really filmed in Barcelona. I'm not sure. I've never been to Barcelona before, obviously, but there's some great location scouting. Whoever who was the location scout, because it was beautiful. The scenery was great. There were some great shots. I really love certain scenes when they're there at nighttime, specifically the beach scene right after Sam and Axel get into the fight with Quan and them in the alleyway. The beach, just very beautiful scenery. It looks great. And I think, as always, like I was mentioning earlier, the music's fantastic. The standout track, in my opinion, is Mortal Kombat. That's what they call it, which is the song where Robbie and Quan are fighting. Fantastic, loved it. It's such a badass track when Robbie does that kip up and you hear that it's so badass. Loved it. The music in this was superb, fantastic, great stuff there. And another thing I really enjoyed, Sensei Wolf, great, loved him. He was a good bad guy. Cobra Kai's really good at working in bad guys very quickly and building them up very quickly and making you intimidated by them very quickly. They made him this very unstoppable force. Johnny and Daniel both weren't able to beat him working together. So, that was kind of nuts. We did get a little bit more of Miyagi's backstory. We got that cool flashback scene, which I think the CGI was actually really good for being a TV show. So that was cool. We got a little bit more. I still don't really know where they're going with that, but, it was cool. We found out Miyagi killed someone in this very tournament, which I kind of saw coming. We got the return of Kenny. We were all a little worried that he wasn't really going to have anything to do with the tournament, and finally they found a way to put him back in. Which I don't really know how he was there with Devin, because that would have made them have 7 people only, even though you're only supposed to have 6. So that didn't really make sense, but, they did it, whatever. He had some great moments in there, and one scene I really love that I want to point out. I love the scenes where, any scene with Robbie and Miguel, talking together is great in my opinion. But certain scenes I really do are the scenes where, like, Miguel's motivating Robbie, like, after they have, like, their argument, after they have kind of, like, a falling out, and Miguel goes up to Robbie, and he's like, what is going on? Why are you, failing like this? What's happening? And he explains it to him, and he's like, you were our leader. You lead, and we will follow. I love scenes with them two together, man. These motivational scenes. Another great scene, the locker room scene, where Robbie's like, who are we? And they're all like, Miyagi-Do. Great, motivational, sad scene. The emotions were there, man. Very good. I'll say this. I'll save my ranking for after part 3, because I'm just going to combine. I plan on probably combining the entirety of part 6 and just ranking all 6 seasons, but I definitely do prefer part 2 over part 1, which is kind of what I figured. Going into this 3-part event, I was thinking that part 2 was probably going to be the best part, and then that part 1 and 3 were kind of going to be the weak links a little bit. Just because part 2 is where the meat of the story is. It's the middle, it's where the meat is, right? It's where the tournament is going to happen, right? And kind of going into this stupidly, I thought the entire tournament would take place in part 2. I didn't think we were going to have to wait till part 3 to see the end of the tournament. Now looking back on it, part 3 could be the best part. But part 2 was definitely better than part 1, in my opinion. Definitely better. So yeah, that is everything I liked about it. As you can see, a lot of likes. But now we are going to go into some of the dislikes. Now moving on to the bad things I have to say about this season. One thing that really bugged me this season was the usage and the handling of Robbie. my God, this dude gets his ass kicked through 90% of this part. 90% of it. He does not come around and actually start winning fights until the second half of episode 9. So 6, 7, and 8, and the first half of 9. So that's 3.5 episodes in a 5-episode part. He is just getting destroyed by everybody. No names, right? And all because Tori wanted to take a break for the time period that they were at Barcelona practicing and training for their fights. I thought that was so stupid. I understand, he can't be on top 100% of the time. I understand that he can't always be on top. But this is the same problem I'm always having with this show, is they build Robbie up, and then when it gets to the moment, they backtrack. And that's kind of what they did here. And that's something I'm really worried about them doing in part 3, which we'll get to. I don't want them to... I hate when they do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I hate it. It's annoying. Of course, finally, Robbie did get his, redemption, and he beat Quan in spectacular fashion and all, but at the cost of him getting his ass kicked 90% of the season. And he was just being really sensitive this season. And this part, I keep saying season, I apologize, part. He's being very sensitive this part, and a lot of people didn't like him in this part, and including me, man. He was just being so sensitive over nothing, practically. So much so that he goes and he gets completely manipulated by Quan mentally. Quan just completely manipulates him. And I really felt like most of this part was a shit on Robbie fest. Everybody was talking shit about him. Dimitri and Hawk both went and said, "Oh, Miguel, you should have been captain, not Robbie." It's like, if you're just going to jerk Miguel's ego off more and more and more, then just fucking make him captain and have him win it. Just get it over with. Stop giving Robbie fans hope that he may actually win finally, as if he shouldn't have already, just to go and jerk Miguel's ego off more. And that's what this whole fucking part was. It was nothing but a fucking Miguel ego flex. This whole part was just everybody sucking off Miguel. Oh, Miguel's the only one fighting good. Oh, Miguel won, a 2v1 against Dublin Thunder, and fucking, he won pretty much all of his fights. And it wasn't until the end where he gets defeated by Quan and then gets his ass kicked by Axel. But most of the season was just jerking off Miguel's ego. It's like, we've done 5 seasons of this. 5 seasons of jerking off this kid's ego. And you still continue to do it. And it's just overdone, in my opinion. So, I really did not like that. That very much so pissed me off. I think another problem I have with this part is this whole Miyagi storyline. Obviously, I was just talking about it in the things I liked, but it just doesn't make any sense as to where they're trying to go with it. And, they have Daniel so much as he's so desperate to find out answers. He gets tricked by Terry Silver to meet at this one location before we even know Terry Silver was involved. And he gets jumped by a bunch of dudes, and they lock him in a fucking dog cage. I remember watching that. I was like, I really see they did not, because, obviously part 1 got a lot of criticism for being really corny and cringe, and I was like, they really didn't, learn their lesson, so they definitely must have filmed all this before part 1 came out, because you can tell they just did not. That corny, cringy writing carried right over to 2, man. It carried right over. Shitty lines like Chosen saying, "The binary bros are back." It's like, why the fuck would Chosen say that? I understand it's been an ongoing joke. I get it. You got Dimitri and Hawk arguing over farts. Those two were so fucking annoying this season. They would not, specifically Dimitri, he would not shut the fuck up about MIT. Even literally Hawk tells him to shut the fuck up. He's so annoying in this part. And he's got like this whole confident swagger thing going on. He's like an arrogant douchebag, but he sucks at everything. And that's like the worst type of character, when they're fucking arrogant even though they suck. He is just so annoying in this part. Did not like him at all. And again, they're arguing over farts. And it's stupid, like, 5-year-old bickering that it's like how fucking young does Cobra Kai think their audience is? They got some teenagers making fart jokes, and then at the end you got a kid killing himself. It's like, how old? Like, what? Where's the demographic here? It just it's non-existent. Like they don't know. It's like you can't make a show for 5-year-olds and 20-year-olds at the same time. It just doesn't work. And I feel like that's what they're trying to do. I feel like they're trying to reach every demographic, and it's just not going to work. This is a very teenage-centric show. This is for, like, I would say teens of, like, 10 to 15 are really going to, like, love this show. Like, think it's the greatest thing in the world. I love this show still. And I'm, 18 years old now, and I still love it, but I can point out the problems with it. One ongoing criticism I keep seeing is that the show is past its expiration date. I agreed with that in part 1. In part 2, I do not agree with that. It feels very necessary. Like, it feels... obviously there's no arcs going on anymore. Everybody's arc's finished. But you don't feel it as much because it's not boring, and it doesn't drag like the first part did. This part is constant action. It is just action, action, action. And I love it. I'm all here for it. I loved that. So I disagreed with that. But... another big problem I had with this part is, again, Johnny and Daniel's fucking bickering. Why are they still fighting? Like, I thought they solved all their problems in season 5. Why are they arguing again? It was my same issue I had with part 1. Why are they still bickering, dude? It's so unnecessary and annoying. Another thing, a whole half an episode was dedicated to this stupid plot point of Miguel's mom possibly being in danger back in the valley with her pregnancy and everything, possibly dead. So they have Miguel and Johnny hop on a flight, fly all the way back to the valley, check on the mom. The mom's fine. They fly right back and get back by the end of the episode. What was the whole point of that? And it feels like they just did that entire plot thread just so Johnny and Miguel could have some alone time and have some conversation together on the plane, which they do share some very good conversation together. But it's just, it didn't need this whole thing where they're on a plane and they go all the way back to the valley and come all the way back to Barcelona in the matter of an episode. It didn't make sense. It just felt so shoehorned in. It was pointless. Another thing I wish they would have done also this season is I really wish we could have gotten some of the other dojos fleshed out a bit more. The only dojos we get fleshed out is Cobra Kai, Miyagi-Do, and Iron Dragons. And the rest of them are just no names, nothings. I kind of wish they would have fleshed them out a bit more. Because it was great having them there, seeing them there. Again, like I said earlier, it helps with the scope of everything. But ultimately, it's just they weren't fleshed out at all. Another problem I had, this is kind of a nitpick, but I didn't like the arena that they were in. You would think, when we were talking about the Saikai Taikai, before any trailers or anything came out, before the seasons came out, I was like, oh, this is going to be big. It's going to be a big stadium, or at least like arena type deal. It's going to be cool. The fucking room is literally the size of the All Valley. They might as well have just had it in the same building they did the All Valley, which is what they're doing in part 3, but it just didn't make sense. It was just too small for me. It should have been bigger, man. Like, I was really expecting a much wider scope. I was expecting an audience, too. There was no audience. I was expecting there to be a huge audience. And again, I think that's what they're trying to do in part 3, based on the trailers and everything. So yeah, those are my main complaints with the part 2. Overall, I really enjoyed part 2. I thought it was a good part. I enjoyed it quite a bit. It was definitely better than part 1. It has its issues. It's not perfect. But I think overall, I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy it. So yeah, that is my review of Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 2. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys are excited for Cobra Kai Part 3. Rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.